After you completed kind of walking through the scene with members of the City of Atlanta's crime scene unit, while on scene, did you get information that two males had contacted 911 indicating they had witnessed what happened at 50 Mount Zion Road?
I did.
Okay. And I don't want you to tell me what anyone said as I go through the next questions. As a result of that, did you go to APD headquarters just down the street here off of Peachtree?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you arrived, did you speak to the two males?
I did.
And without telling me what they said, can you tell the jurors who you spoke to that early morning?
Sure, is Bernard Mitchell and Rodney Uten.
Okay. And can you explain to the jurors, without telling me what they said, kind of the circumstances and of the setup of the interview? Let's start with that.
Oh, it was just an interview. Well, there's two different areas at headquarters that we speak to people in. One's the interview room. It's just like if you guys came in and had something to tell us, we put you in the interview room and we speak with you. The other is what they call an interrogation, or when they're in custody. In those rooms, you're secured, chained to the floor, and both rooms are audio and video recorded. Both types of rooms.
And you said they were in the first room, the interview room that you described?
They were in the, yes, witness room.
Can you tell the jurors, do you interview them together or do you interview them separately?
They were done separately at different times. Same, one after the other.
And after speaking with both Mr. Uten and Mr. Mitchell, can you tell the jurors, do you speak with a female, Miss M. Smith, after speaking with both Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Uten?
That's correct, yes.
And can you tell the jurors, do you speak with her that same day, later on February 23rd of 2019, or at a later date?
It was on the same day, on the 23rd.
Okay. And can you kind of explain to the jurors in relation to when you arrived to the scene and kind of worked and processed the scene with members of the police department, about how long after you arrived did you begin to interview people in relation to your investigation?
Multiple times in the report. It all came together fairly quickly once it started rolling. Let me see if I notated it in my report. Do you know specifically in the report where I need to be looking?
Let me ask you generally this question based on your recollection. Was it a matter of hours that you began speaking with witnesses, for example, Mr. Uten and Mr. Mitchell?
It was all in the morning time, yeah. It was like 6 in the morning when I got to the crime scene. It was well before lunch when I was talking to Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Uten.
Okay. And when you spoke to Miss Smith, can you tell the jurors kind of the setup or the arrangement for that interview?
That was in the witness area. It was later on in the day. I think it was after lunch, thereabouts. But same, voluntary. She came in, and I spoke with her.
And when you're speaking with Miss Smith, is it just you and Miss Smith, or are there any other members of your team that are also present?
Detective Casey was with me.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, as you began the interview with...
You're talking about Mariah, right? With Miss Smith? Or with the other two?
So I'm talking about Miss Smith.
Okay, yeah, Miss Smith.
Yes.
Detective Casey was with me, yes.
Yes. So can you tell the jurors, when you began the interview with Miss Smith, can you kind of describe for the jurors her general demeanor that early morning?
Sure, yeah, she was upset, nervous, crying, young girl, And you can imagine, she said she was a witness to a shooting and a murder, and she was upset.
Objection, proper bolstering.
Now, as you began the interview, can you tell the jurors, how did you start?
Sure. Well, I started all the same way. I introduced myself, and we start talking about, and I asked, talking about the situation that they witnessed, and I asked for their statement. And she began by telling me a series of events that she relayed to me at that time that I knew were not to be correct based on what I knew from the crime scene.
Okay. And when you say knew what not to be correct in relation to the crime scene, can you explain to the jurors, I guess, what you mean by that?
Yeah, she was saying that this victim had been shot by one of his companions. The way she described it, it was not possible based on what I knew from the crime scene. So I brought that to her attention. After some consoling and some speaking with her by me, she realized that she changed the story to what the truth was, which we knew that she was not telling the truth.
Okay. And as you continued, I guess, to confront her with the physical evidence that you had located on the scene and through your investigation while on scene, did she provide you with names or nicknames of individuals she knew to be involved?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And do you recall, or can you tell the jurors the nicknames that she told you of the people she saw shooting that night?
Yes.
And if referring to your report would help refresh your recollection, by all means.
One was Little Rod and Bali.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, as she described what she saw, did she tell you, or tell the jurors what she told you about the firearms that she saw Little Rod and Bali having?
Judge, Your Honor, I'm going to object that this is improper bolstering. She's already testified to this.
This is impeachment, Your Honor. She testified she couldn't recall at times during her testimony as it related to the firearms, what they look like. When you described, you've been describing the fact that the first part of the interview you had with Ms. Smith, she gave you a number of facts and scenarios that were not aligned with what you knew to be consistent with your investigation of the crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
And as your interview with Ms. Smith continued, I believe you indicated earlier about the statements that Ms. Smith made going forward about what she observed on that early morning of February 23rd of 2019 as it related to the shooting. The facts that she relayed to you after you confronted her with what you knew to be true about the physical evidence on the crime scene, the facts that she was giving you, did they become consistent with what you knew through your investigation at the crime scene?
They did become consistent, yes.
Okay. And as you continued to interview Ms. Smith, did she continue to provide you statements as it related to what she saw and heard that were consistent with what you've described to this?
Your Honor, leading the witness.
Ruled based on our discussion at the bench.
So let me see if I can remember what I was asking you. So as she continued to describe things that she saw and heard and observed on the crime scene that early morning when the shooting was occurring, were those statements consistent with what you knew that you found on the crime scene earlier during your investigation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, we talked a little bit about she was able to provide nicknames. Can you tell the jurors, without telling me what she told you, but was she able to provide you with Instagram handles or usernames for the two people she gave you nicknames for?
Yes.
Okay. And as a result, I guess in conjunction with that, was she actually able to pull them up and show you photographs as it related to the person she knew as Little Rod?
Yes.
Okay, now, are those the photographs that Ms. Smith was able to provide you in relation to the person she knew to be Little Rod?
That's correct, yes.
And can you tell the jurors, do you see her signature on those photographs?
I do.
Don't pull it up. And can you tell the jurors what date is her signature on those two photographs?
The 24th of February of 19.
Okay. And was Ms. Smith able to do the same thing as it relates to the person she knew to be Mr. Bali?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, after receiving this information from Ms. Smith as it related to who she saw shooting, can you tell the jurors, were you able to determine the identity of the people she knew to be Bali and Little Rod?
Yes.
Okay, and who were those people?
Little Rod's name is Rodalius Ryan Jr. Bali's name is Damone Blalock.
Now, before we move on from Ms. Smith's interview, can you explain to the jurors, so during Ms. Smith's interview, you described how you confronted her with the physical evidence as it relates to the statement she made initially at the beginning of the interview. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jurors, when you confronted Ms. Smith with the fact that what she was saying didn't make sense with what you already knew, did you tell her the identities of the people who were shooting?
No.
Did you, before speaking to Ms. Smith, have any idea who they were?
I didn't know him from a can of paint. No, sir.
And was that something she was able to tell you based on what she described as what she saw and heard that early morning on February 23rd of 2019?
That's correct. Yep.
And while you were interviewing Ms. Smith, did you provide her with any facts as it related to the identities of Mr. Ryan or Mr. Blalock during that interview?
No, sir.
Okay, and was that information that she was able to provide, or did she provide you information that assisted in your investigation in identifying both Little Rod and Mr. Blalock?
That's correct.
Now, after speaking with Ms. Smith, can you tell the jurors, did you attempt to identify another female described to you during Ms. Smith's interview?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors, who was that?
Her nickname was Brazen. She was with Miss Smith.
And if, your report.
Tyhera Hartfield. Oh, excuse me, that's her mom. Oh, yeah, Tyhera Hartfield. That's right.
So it sounds like using your report refreshed your recollections?
Yes. Sir.
Okay. And in your identifying Ms. Hartfield, can you tell the jurors, based on your investigation into Ms. Hartfield, what her living situation was?
She was a runaway, listed as a runaway at the time.
And ultimately, before, let me ask you this question. Based on the information that you've talked about here today, can you tell the jurors, did you make charging decisions?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you swear out warrants for the arrest of Mr. Ryan and Mr. Blalock?
Eventually I did, yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you ultimately get to speak with Ms. Hartfield?
I did.
Okay. And without telling me what she said, did you, I guess, speak or interview her in a similar fashion that you've described as it relates to Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Uten, and Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Okay. And during your investigation, can you tell the jurors, did you also receive a social media posting as it related to Mr. Ryan hours after the homicide?
Yes.
Okay. And was that something that you used and utilized in your investigation in taking out the warrants that you've described?
Yes.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions pending redirect.